So the today's talk, my motive would be to like give you an overview of the field, like sort of what it is all about, and like what current science is about. And I mean, the main point is to motivate you to probably, so some of you might take up it as a challenge, and like probably they become one of the researchers in the field and like would join us. Yeah. So I hope that that happens after seeing and like listening to this talk. Right. Okay. Cool. Great. I mean, let's start. Okay. Let's start with some funny stuff, and not funny. I mean, yeah, cool stuff. So you can see two superheroes on this slide, right? I mean, all of you. Can we just have a show of hands or like name? You can name of both of them. Do you know these guys? Who they are? Like any idea about that?
Okay,
Uh,
any Marvel fans?
Any Marvel fans in the
Okay.
house?
Lots of people saying Captain America.
Yeah, yeah. That's great.
Yes.
What's the other one? Okay, I see
Ala says
someone say Wolverine.
Wolverine.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, great. I mean, I think I've got a great audience today. It's going to be great. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, it's Captain America and Wolverine, but that's the main question. What's common between them? So can someone guess like what's common between them? What characteristics? What property? Okay.
Yes, they're superheroes. They have superpowers.
Yeah, they are super. They have some superpowers. What is
Okay.
that?
Anushka says they
Okay.
never age.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
I think
I
that's a
also
great
saw.
superpower to have. I would love that superpower.
Yeah, sure. I think most of us would love that, probably. And yeah, so okay. Okay, I think we have got a few comments which guess the right answer, and so yeah, it is anti-aging aka longevity hacks. So one of them doesn't seems to age, and another one have crazy like regenerative properties, right? So yeah, and that's the properties these superhero has. But I mean, this thing comes to our mind as well that if they can have these are always although fictional characters, why can't we have them in our real life? And so our discussion of today is going to be all about this. But before moving forward, let's have another trivia. So okay, this is a kind of a quiz question to you all. Can you guess or you can connect all of these three figures that you see on this slide? Can you guess something from this? What does this indicate to you? Any term, anything that comes to your mind? Okay, great.
Anushka is asking, is that Elon Musk?
Yeah, that's
Yes.
Elon Musk.
I would say to connect it, I'll say Elon Musk smells an opportunity to take the car to space.
Oh, that's great.
Was that too elaborate?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great elaborative answer. I mean, even I didn't thought about that.
All right, but it's
Yeah.
wrong. So, what could
Yeah.
it be? No idea.
Okay. I see a few people in the chat are saying something related to Tesla.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Sayan says Elon Musk takes cat in a car.
That's great. So, I mean, I probably can guess from Elon Musk and car that it's a Tesla, but then what does this cat indicate? Do you have any idea?
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Aditi
Okay.
asks, is the cat species called Tesla?
No. Okay. So anyway, the answer is Tesla cars, but actually the cat. So the logo, if you see over here, the Tesla logo, it's inspired from the nose from the in the this thing, the cat's nose. It looks similar to Tesla logo. So apparently, Elon said somewhere that he got inspired from this to design the logo in that manner. Okay, that's cool. But like you must be asking that why am I talking about cars, right? I mean, it has to do with aging? Why don't we come to that? Okay, so let's come to it. So what is aging? That is an important question. And so we will take an example of Tesla to understand that what is aging. So just imagine that you have just bought a new Tesla car. You have just got it from the showroom and you just started to drive it. It's a young Tesla, right? So it would definitely have good performance. It would be like less prone to damage, and obviously it would be easy to maintain, right? Because I mean it's new, and it is supposed to be uh, like performing at its best, right? But what happens when you drive it, when you start using it in long run, I mean daily, what happens is the car starts to break. It starts to become old. I mean, we called it old, but what it shows is inconsistent performance. It becomes more prone to damage. It gives us less output. We use a lot of fuel and get less speed and like less mileage that we say. So all those things start to happen as the car ages, right? So it's a time dependent process, and it's a process that, so with the time while using it, it becomes, and it wears and tears out and becomes old. So essentially this is aging. Oh, sorry. So this is aging, but now let's replace the car with a biological cell. But before that is more important, can we have a show of hands that do you guys know what a cell is? And by cell, I mean a biological cell, right? Can we have a show of hands, or like anyone in the chat section? What is a cell? Can you simply define it in the easiest possible way?
Okay, Ala says it's the basic structural and functional unit of life.
Okay, that's pretty accurate. Anyone
Basic
else?
unit of life. Naman says building block of life of our body.
Yeah, yeah.
Aditi says it has a nucleus.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, I mean, I guess we already had a few sessions back on this platform, on these topics. So probably you guys are already well familiar with all this. Okay, so yeah, as some of you said, a cell is the smallest fundamental structural and functioning unit of life, right? This is what you would find in all textbook definitions as a textbook definition, right? And every living organism that we see around us, you, me, a dog, a cat, or anything that is, I mean, alive, right, is all made up of cells. Even the plants, I mean, everything around us. Everything is just a collection of cells, right? There is do we have any questions with it? We can stop over here before moving forward.
Okay, yes, sure. Any questions? Let me see. Do we have any questions about everything we've discussed till now? Aging, cells. Pooja asks, do plants have cells?
Yes.
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 Okay, Anushka has a question. Anushka says, is aging like when your body upgrades itself?
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good question. So upgrades as in, so you are going through a phase, you are going through a developmental phase. I mean, we'll come to it. It would become a bit complex if we start to talk about it. But it's not really upgrade, but I would say it's a downgrade in the other way.
Yes.
So it's like you are moving towards prime in your life. You are moving toward becoming very fit, mature, and healthy in your life. And then after a certain point, your body starts to downgrade itself. And so there is where we call it as aging, right? Okay, we will actually come to that. So don't worry about it.
Okay, so Kavish has a question. Kavish asks, do non-living things age?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we are taking an example of Tesla from the start. So yeah, they do it, but we are just concerned about biological aging. I mean, aging in living cells, right? So yeah, we'll take an example of a non-living thing essentially to explain how a living thing ages. So yeah.
Okay. I think another question is, can we reverse aging?
Okay, I mean, now I think we should move forward because now we are moving towards some more complex questions, and we will probably see them in subsequent sites.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Okay, I think we can go ahead and we are going to
Yeah.
answer all of these questions as they come. Yes.
Sure. Okay, so as we have talked about, biological cells aged, right? So if you see on this slide, what I'm showing you is that there is a cell on the left and there is a cell on the right, and they are separated by some time, right? So I mean, this was on a young cell, and then after some time, it ages and it becomes an older cell, right? So what I'm showing over here, so these are few characteristics of an older cell that you are not going to find in the younger ones. So we will actually come to them individually after. But so there is a thing called telomere erosion. I think this we also talk about. You wrote that in the Twitter line I saw, which was nice, because this is something which is very well known about. It has also got a Nobel Prize before, so yeah, it's pretty popular. But then there are other things as well. There's DNA damage accumulation. There's a loss of proteostasis. There's epigenetic alterations. There are mitochondrial dysfunctions. So there are a lot of things. We are going to talk about them later. But so what in general you can understand is that an older cell has something uh, uncommon from a younger cell, right? Which is a property of time, right? So a younger cell, as it ages, as it survives itself during time, it becomes old and it has these all these characteristics around. And so we are going to talk about them. And we can actually correlate this with the Tesla car, the example that we took before. So as a car, as we talked about, that a young car, its performance is high, right? It is young, it is easy to maintain. Similarly, you can think about a young cell. It's performing very well. It's doing a lot of different jobs. It's easy to maintain, and it is less prone to damage. But what happens is with age, this like this car ages, it becomes less in performance, right? Similarly, a cell ages and it becomes less in performance, if you can say, if I had to say in a broad terms, right? So this is what exactly aging is in biological context. So in simple terms, I can tell you that aging is sort of a wear and tear that we are seeing inside a cell over time, right? We'll come to details of it in subsequent slides. But what it results in is this that we see on the left. So this is sort of a cycle, a human cycle that we go through in our lifespans. So we are young, and we become like we are very in the infant stage, and we become young, and we start becoming mature, and then we are like at prime of our lives. We are like very young. We are reproductively healthy, and we are doing everything efficiently, and then we slowly start to age properly, and then we start to show symptoms, and then we probably sort of as we talked about earlier, we downgrade in our life. So yeah, so this is how a typical life looks like. And so it's great. I mean, you guys are at somewhat this phase of your life, right? Young, fresh, energetic, right?
Thank you,
I'm
Tushar. I
probably
take it all as a very big compliment.
yeah, sure. I mean, all of us are young over here, right? Some of us are more young, some of us are a bit less young. But then, yeah, I mean, this is all about it, all about the science that we are going to talk about, right? So, yeah, I mean, this is what it translates to, right? Cool. So, let's move forward. Now, here we'll talk about some science. So, basically, how aging is defined is we have certain hallmarks of aging, right? So to define hallmark, as you might know, like some of you might know, that hallmark is something which is a sort of a characteristic of some system. So like you might know about gold, right? You might have heard from your parents or like somewhere. So when we go to market to buy gold, we talk about how pure is it. It's a 22 karat gold or a 24 karat gold. So we call it's sort of a hallmark of it. So how pure is it? Right? Similarly, aging. So these are hallmarks of aging, sort of like characteristics of aging, right? So something like which the aging cells show, right? So by definition, aging is the gradual loss of biological functions due to accumulated damage and breakage of maintenance machinery inside the cell, right? So you can just imagine, we have talked about cell before. So a cell is a very robust system. You can just imagine, right? It is very like it's very robust in nature. But what happens with time is that it starts to accumulate a lot of damage, right? Because of wear and tear that we talked about. Similarly, like a car, right? And also at the same time, a cell, as I said, it is because it is robust, it has its own maintenance machinery. There are a lot of different proteins and like different pathways which keep the cell up and going. But what happens with age is all those start to show some problems. They start to behave in some weird ways. And so that leads to breakage of the maintenance machinery inside the cell. And so this is how we classically define aging, right? And what I have on the left, this diagram as we see. So this is a very classical figure in the field of aging, where we have like literally given the like sort of characteristics to aging, right? So we'll talk about them one after another. So genomic instability. We start with this. So you can just imagine your DNA. So we'll discuss all these 9 hallmarks with some analogy, right? So like we can talk about genomic instability. So we know our cells have DNA, right? So this DNA, you can just imagine it like a long stick. And what happens with age is that stick start becoming a bit less. It becomes weak from inside, right? And so starts breaking from different points. So you can just imagine there's a young stick, and then you use it over time, right? There's a wooden stick, and then it loses its structural integrity, and over time it starts to break. So similarly, it happens with DNA inside the cell, and we call that as genomic instability. Telomere iterations. So these are some of the things which are very. So this term is very well known because it has been like a popular thing in the research area. And what you can understand is that, so you can understand is it through an example of shoelace. So like you have shoelaces, it has a cap on top of it, right? What happens with regular use is that cap, if you somehow that cap is removed, your lace, right, that thread starts to come out. You must have seen them, and that's really very annoying. I really am very annoyed with that. So that is that. So the way that cap is removed and that thread starts to come out, in same way, there are chromosomes inside the cells, and so they have these caps in their ends, and over time that cap wears out. And what happens due to that is the chromosome it threads out. It like exposes its thread, and that is another characteristic or hallmark of age. Then epigenetic infiltration. So epigenetics. So essentially, you can imagine that our whole chromosome is sort of like arranged in form of a spring, right? What happens is the springs open and closes many times in the life. It opens for some reason, and then it again closes for a lot of different reasons. We are not going to talk about that. But that efficiency of opening and closing, that starts to become, it will start become less efficient with time. And so similarly, that happens because of some kind of epigenetic alteration. So like it's the property that cell is losing with time. Loss of proteostasis. So we know our cells have a lot of different kind of proteins. We have all earlier talked about this in different platforms, on different lectures on this platform. So these proteins, again, they break down with time, right? Then there is deregulated nutrient sensing. This is another result of aging, right? So cells, they cannot sense like nutrients. So cells require some kind of nutrients to survive. But what happens with age is they can no longer sense that nutrient source properly, right? So that is another hallmark. Mitochondrial dysfunction. So you might know that mitochondria is one of the important cell organelles, and it's a classical like sentence or definition that is given to mitochondria, that it is a powerhouse of the cell, right? So with age, this degrades, and so the cell starts to lose its power generating efficiency, right? Then there is cellular senescence. So this is another interesting phenomena, that what happens with time is that cells, so essentially cells die out naturally, but with time, that dying out becomes unregulated, non-regulated, you can imagine, right? So there are some kind of zombie cells you can think about, which are not good for the system, and so the body wants them to like clean them out, but that process is again deregulated with age. Then there's this stem cell exhaustion. So stem cells, as you might know, that these are some of those cells which are present in the bone marrow and in a lot of different places. And so they can essentially divide to form any other cell in your body, right? So there's different kinds of them, but we won't go in that. But over time, again, these cells exhaust. So we are no longer, so like it's like our source, which we are losing with time, right? Source of cells. And then this altered intracellular communication. So this also happens. So with time, the cells essentially stops to communicate with each other, right? Because they have all these mechanisms in place, which starts to break down with age. And so what we see is that there's an altered intercellular communication. So all these, whatever we have talked about by different examples, all of these happens with age. And people have seen it in different kind of systems, in plants, in animals, or in any biological living systems, that all these things happen with age, right? So yeah, I mean, I would actually stop over here because it was a heavy slide. And so if you guys have any questions, we can have a few of them.
Okay. I think Ala had asked a question before we started this slide. Her question was, is evolution any way responsible or contributes to the aging process?
Okay, so that's an interesting question. So yeah, with evolution, so I mean, yeah, so evolution has evolved us in a way that we age, right? But now, as we have, as people have researched on it, people have found that we are not exactly evolved to die out one day because of aging. So that is something which is a sort of controversial idea to think about, but that is truth. Because so I would just give you what do you say, a slight bit of hint regarding that. So what researchers have found out, that there is no dedicated aging related genes inside our system, right? So there is no that like one gene that causes aging, right? So over time, what people have thought about, that this might be a thing that happens because of evolution, but it is not essentially because of evolution. So it's a natural process, and honestly, we haven't evolved to age. In short, I can say that. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Aditi was saying if you could repeat the part about cellular senescence.
Okay. Okay. So what happens is, so there are cells inside the body, and they have their function, right? But after some time, if let's suppose a cell is to be removed, like its function is over, it came into existence, it did its job, and now it is to be removed because its job is over, right? So that is supposed to happen in a normal system. But what happens is, so this is what is called as senescence. But with the time, as we age, this process becomes deregulated. So these cells, which were supposed to be taken out of the system, they starts to accumulate inside, right? And so they start causing a lot of different problems. We know a lot of few of them. And so this is what is called as cellular senescence. And so what we see with age is that the cellular senescence increases. So we see a lot of different zombie cells, as I have talked about, those accumulate with age. So yeah.
So I think before that, Bhargavi had a question. Do our cells get tired when we grow old? In a way, yes, you can combine all these changes as, yes, they are finding it difficult to repair the chromosomes, difficult to use nutrients, right?
Yeah.
So in some way, yes. And then I think there's a good question from Aditi also, that about melanin.
Okay.
So it says, is it because of melanin that people's hair become lighter? So they start graying with age. What is behind the phenomenon of graying?
Okay. Honestly, I don't really know that, but I can guess that probably, as you talked about, melanin or some other pigment. So with age, probably that is less produced.
Yes, possibly.
Or yeah, and so because of that, our natural hair, whatever color we have, that starts to fade away, and so it starts to become gray or something, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So basically the inability of our cells to keep producing this pigment, whatever pigment we have in our hair.
Okay, so moving forward, now the picture that I'm showing you, this is probably the classical thinking that you have in your mind, that what aging is, and especially in the context of human, that we are young, then we start to become old and older, right? And essentially, this last man that we see, that's an older person, very very old, wrinkled skin, loss of hairs, and then I mean, in the functions, the eyesight, the smelling power, the teeth, everything, and it's just like miserable, right? But this is interesting. Aging is not universal. Now, what people and what researchers have found out over time is they have taken a lot of different organisms from different places on the planet, and what they have found out that aging doesn't happen at the same pace in every organism, and even then, there are some organisms which do not age at all, right? So we have examples of Hydra, we have examples of jellyfish, which literally do not seem to age at all, right? But at the same time, we have some organisms like snake and morlap, turtle, lobster, or pine trees, or some of them even elephant. Some of them age very very slow, and some of them age very very fast. So what this concludes us with, that aging is not universal. So it's not like all of us are aging at the same pace. I mean, all of us, I mean, all humans, all plants, all the different organisms, all the microcellular organisms, all the like animals or different kind of organisms, but they age at a very different pace. So this is interesting, and especially if we take examples of Hydra, we take examples of jellyfish, they do not age at all. So that is very very interesting, because it's interesting to know that what happens in them, that they do not age. They must be having something very different from us, or some special thing in them which lets them to prevent aging, right? Which we do not have, or which other organisms do not have, right? But before coming to that, there's another interesting slide. So we have talked about other organisms, but why not humans? I mean, this is a classical slide. You just see around, you would see people who are very young, even at a very older age, right? I've just put a few of examples here. So I've put the example of Anil Kapoor, Ant-Man, or Ronaldo. So these are actors. You must be knowing them. Anil Kapoor is one of the famous in the industry, and then he's one of the characters from Marvel series. And so I mean, you can see like literally in like decades they haven't really aged. They still look as young as they used to look young in their earlier times. So what is going on? I mean, and you see Ronaldo. I mean, one of the fittest footballers out there, one of the fittest sports person out there. And honestly, he is in his late 30s. And this picture that I'm showing over here, it's a very recent figure of a recent picture of a football match, right? So
What, he has been in his late 30s forever?
What?
Has he been in his late 30s forever?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so the point is that even in his late 30s, he's so young, he's so fit, right? And he is playing at a very at the international level, which demands so much from the body, right?
Yes, yes. So, but age is also relative, Tushar. For me, late 30s is young. It is young.
Yeah.
I'm like, when you say even in his late 30s he's young, then what would you say about me? She's 1 foot in the grave.
No. Okay. That's
a joke.
point. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, I mean, but yeah, that's true. Okay, so, but like we think about that, even the late 30s is now old, right? And 40s and 50s is like more old, and then like 60s you even start considering yourself as elderly. You start taking a stick in the hand and like someone like. So like, I mean, it's all like the conceptions that we have in our head, right? So my objective of this slide was to show that aging is fluid, right? We have previously in the last slide we have talked about other animals. We have talked about lobsters, jellyfish, and pine trees, let's for example. And this slide we are talking about humans. And so this gives us an idea that aging is fluid. We can basically modulate it. And even some people around us have done that. They have like kept themselves fit and healthy because of their like eating habits or their exercising habits or their lifestyle, that they still look so young and they're still so energetic even after being old. And when I'm saying old, I'm actually comparing it. So it's a comparative analysis, not an absolute analysis. So if you just take an example of some other 40-year-old guy, you probably would say, oh, he's very old, right? He cannot really run or like for so long, or so he cannot produce so much of sporting abilities. But then you see Ronaldo, and then you say, oh man, he's doing great. So yeah, so it sort of hints us that aging is fluid, right? And so now we have to think about that what we can do. Okay, let's come back to our Tesla car, somewhere from where we started. Okay, so right, so what a car would have. Okay, before moving this, should we take any questions? Do we have any questions?
I think there was a question about the jellyfish. The
Okay.
question was, if they don't age, do they ever die? Do jellyfish die?
Yeah, so they don't really die. They don't seem to die. They just replicate. They divide, and they just keep on living forever. Like you can imagine, like a bacteria. Like a bacteria never dies. It divides into two, and then two divides into four, and it happens. It goes on, right? So similarly, it happens with them. And so essentially, I mean, they just keep on living. They never die. So yeah.
So the only way they would die is if there was like some attack from a predator
Yeah.
or something like that, because obviously
Yeah.
they're living in the wild, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But naturally, they do not seem to that. Yeah. Okay. Do we
Okay.
have another question?
Let me check if there are more questions. No, I don't see any. We can move ahead and then we'll come
Sure.
back.
Sure. Okay, cool. Okay, so let's back to the Tesla car, right? So let's talk about different components of a car. What a car is made up of. Well, obviously, one of the most important component of the car is the main engine, right? Where the fuel goes in, and it burns out, and it produces some kind of power, which powers the whole car, right? Your tires move, your all the internal systems operate, right? So, and main engine is one of the most important components. But then there are many other components as well. There are brake pads, there are tires, there are seats, the whole metallic body itself, and there are many numerous components. Now what is happening is with over time is that both of them are aging, right? Both, I mean, the main engine and all the different components inside the cell. Yes. So with time, both of them are wearing and tearing out. So as I've written that with age, both of them would wear and tear out. But then the question arises: what would you fix? What would you like to fix first, or in general, what would you like to fix? Right. So we have talked about
So
that.
maybe we can ask them what they would like to fix. If they were,
Yeah,
if you
sure.
were an engineering, if you were an
Yeah.
engineer who was supposed to fix this car,
Yeah.
what is
What
the
would you
first thing
fix?
you would try to fix?
Yeah.
Okay, lots of people saying main engine.
Yeah.
Okay, Anushka says the engine and the wheels.
Okay.
Okay, yes, lots of people have said main engine.
Yeah. It's obvious. It's a good guess, right? That answer is main engine, because if you start to fix each and every individual component, it would actually make no sense, right? Because there are so many components. And so probably what might be the case is that because your main engine has some problem, it is providing some kind of like uneven thrust or something, and because of that, your, like, let's suppose your tires are wearing out, your brake pads are wearing out, right? Other components are suffering because of that. So what do you do? You would first fix the main engine. And so why am I talking about this? So like fixing main engine, it is similar. So fixing main engine of a car is somewhat similar as treating aging as a cause of many different diseases. And this is something interesting, right? So we know that there are different kind of diseases around us. We have we have heard probably about some of them: osteoporosis, osteoarthritis, all the different kind of cardiovascular complications, then atherosclerosis, heart failure. I mean, it goes on. Diabetes, Alzheimer, Parkinson's. I mean, there's a non-ending list of this, and essentially, this is even getting more and more, right? Because in today's time, we are adding more diseases to the tally. But now the question arises: what should we do? Should we treat each and every disease. I mean, essentially, we are doing it today. There are different researches that are going around. There are a lot of people working with trying to fix diabetes, trying to fix heart-related disorders, trying to fix neurodegenerative diseases. So yeah, they are essential. They are absolutely essential because it's like some of the immediate solutions that we have in our hands. But at a more fundamental level, at a more philosophical level, if I say, what is more beneficial? If we can fix aging somehow, can we somehow manage all these diseases? And so what I am showing in this diagram is that aging, which is essentially all these things that we have talked about earlier, like all the different kind of hallmarks of aging. So these things, they corresponds to all different kind of diseases in the biological system. Especially here we are talking about humans, right? So all different kind of biological systems that we have inside our body, and they are related with all these diseases, right? And then it translates to a bigger social problems as well: poor quality of life, drug interaction, disease interaction, hospitalization, mortality. So all these are like sort of outcomes of these diseases, and these diseases are like sort of outcomes of aging, right? So what should you do? You should try to fix aging, because if you can fix aging, we can essentially fix all these things. We can fix the biological problems. We can fix different kind of diseases that we know around us, and then in the long run, we can fix a lot of different social issues as well, right? So I mean, I think it's clear to you what should be the motivation for fixing aging, right? So now, how to fix aging? That's the main question that I think some of you were asking even before. That okay, I have been talking about that we should fix aging, right? The aging is a problem. It's one of the biggest problems that we have, right? But then, how really do we fix it? So apparently there's a lot of different research that is going on, and I will show you a slide, some, I think it's next one or one after that, where we will just see all different things which are going on. But over here we are going to talk about some things which are very well defined, right? So one of them is exercise. Exercise is one of the most proven aspects to fix aging, right? It has been shown in all different kind of organisms, starting from mice and even smaller than them, and even in humans extensively, that exercising is one of the biggest possible way to fix aging or to slow down aging, right? So over here you would see this. Honestly, this is a very complicated figure. You would see different kind of cells, different kind of things written on here and there. So essentially, there are a lot of different things going on. There's a different biology of things that are going on inside the body. But what this is showing overall is that exercise essentially fixes everything inside the body. It is one of those things that we know that fixes every signs of aging inside the body, inside the human body, inside biological systems, whatever we talk about, right? So exercising is one of the best ways to slow down and fix aging.
So I think that also explains Ronaldo's fitness.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right. I mean, it doesn't necessarily explain Anil Kapoor and other actors, but he's also supposed to be quite a fitness freak, actually.
Yep.
But Ronaldo is another level. I mean, professional athlete level fitness is a different ball game.
Yep.
Correct?
Absolutely.
But I think the takeaway, Tushar, for the young minds from this is that exercise has to be a part of our integral life.
Absolutely.
At least 4 to 5 hours a week, a solid exercise routine.
Yeah, especially I mean in this time, during the pandemic times in which we are living in, we are all stuck inside our homes.
Exactly.
We're not really doing a lot of physical activities. So we need to dedicate some time from our 24 hours for these exercises. And by exercising, you do not really mean you need to go to gym every day, or you start lifting out big heavyweight dumbbells every day. Exercising can just simply be going for a long walk, right, in the evening, and just going for a small run in the evening. And as you were talking about, for the young minds, it's very important for the older ones as well. So what you can do is you can motivate the others that you have in your households, your grandparents, your parents, right, others to you can like take them along with you, okay, let's go for walking, let's go for jogging, let's play some sport for some time, let's get some sweat out of the body, right? So it's going to be a lot more beneficial for them, and it's going to make a healthy habit for you as well. So over time you would also be fit and healthy throughout your life, and you would essentially enjoy your life. And another thing, so I think this is also very important, what kind of foods we take in, right? So obviously we have all different choices around us. We have all these fast foods, pizzas, burgers, drinks, so soft drinks, hard drinks. We can take them, and then at the same time we also have options of healthier foods, vegetables, right? Fishes, milk, right? All these raw foods. So you might think, by saying so, I'm like sort of that, what, Dadaji talking to you to take healthy foods and just throw away all those chagans, burgers and pizzas. No, essentially not. But like you can go out on like once a week or like once every 15 days for these snacks. But like in your regular habit, in your everyday eating habit, you should definitely have healthy foods, right? You should take more raw vegetables. That is going to be helpful. So you guys are in a very developmental phase as well, right? You are not essentially aging at this point. You are still developing. So these things are going to be very, very helpful to you to grow, and they are going to be helpful for your elders to stay fit and to slow down aging, right? And not just eating healthy, it's the way you eat it. That is also very important. So essentially there's whole different science of uh, restricting your diet for some time. So this is called dietary restriction or intermediate fasting, if you have heard about. I won't really go in that detail because it's still a research topic. But what people have shown is that if you eat for some period of time and then you keep yourself hungry for some period of time, it helps your body. It helps your body to age slow, right? It's
And this well-known wisdom,
yeah,
right? This routine, everyday snacking that has become a very
yep,
modern phenomenon, right? You know, we're eating something the whole day.
yeah.
Yeah.
So this is something. So it's not just eating healthy; it's the way also that you eat it, the different time of the day where you eat it, and definitely then you have other things, right? You can take some metabolites, you can take some medications, some supplements, right? Then obviously genetics plays a definite role, but you can't really do a lot about genetics, right? But you can do a lot about the way you live your life, the way you exercise, the way you eat your food. You can do a lot about them, right? So this is one of these. So what I've talked about here is other things which are very well known, which are very well established, right? Okay, now as I've said, that there's a lot of different science that is going on in the field, right? Wait, the slide is loading. Okay, now it's here. So essentially, this is a busy slide. It's a very busy slide, and honestly, I'm not going to explain you all here. So it's a diagram which I just found it very, very good because it like sort of summarizes everything that is going around in the field, right? So okay, so let's talk about here. So these are the two of the important scientists in the field which are working, David Sinclair and Norman. So they are like the people who are actively working in research field, talking about different kind of regimes that we talked about earlier, exercise, diet, and even some intervention therapies, right? So this thing we have realized lately, that even if we have a very healthy lifestyle, even if we eat regularly, even if we eat healthy, even if we exercise, even then you are going to age, right? Because of many, many things which you cannot control, right? So there are certain things which you can control, your eating habits, your exercising habits, but then there is whole environmental effects around you that you essentially cannot control. So then to mitigate that, to like sort of prevent that, or you have to take some kind of therapies, some kind of drugs, some kind of like treatments, right? And so these people, different scientists around the world, they are researching on this thing, that what we can do. So as you can see over here, so you see there are different kind of DNA methylation. You can see there's this epigenetic clock. So this is something which is interesting. I will just talk about this. So essentially now we have a clock, like you have a clock to measure time. Today we have a clock to measure your age. And by age, I do not mean your age which is there on your certificate, the age which is inside you, the biological age. And so we call this as aging clock. So it's based on epigenetics, right? So it's very interesting. If you are interested, you just can Google it and you will
Maybe
find some.
Tushar, we can ask them based on their understanding. What are the
Yeah, yeah,
things you would put into? What would make up the epigenetic clock? Now that you know
yeah,
all the changes happening, what
yeah,
would be your epigenetic clock? What are the
yeah.
changes you will look for? Can you think of all those 9 things? So, what age, Kavish? We'll have to be more specific, right? What age will go into? Is it is your age of birth? No, we are all 10, 20, 30, 40, some age. But if you say epigenetic clock, what are the factors that will go in? So let's think. We'll talk about anti-aging, Anushka, but let's think in your cells. What are the cellular changes? Yes, so the quality of your cells. What kind of quality factors? What will be the factors that will reflect aging? Okay, sleep, but let's talk more at the cellular level and the DNA level,
Maybe
right?
something which you can measure, something which you can
Yeah.
measure using a physical test.
Correct. Like Anushka says, synthesis of proteins by the cell. I'll
Yeah.
add another one, ability of cells to use nutrients. Okay,
Yes.
that shows how damaged is the DNA.
Exactly.
Have the
Exactly.
telomeres fallen off? Are they all frayed?
Exactly.
How
Now
are
we are talking about.
yeah, exactly. How is the interaction between the DNA and the proteins in the
Yeah.
epigenetics, right?
Yeah.
Damage
Yeah.
to cells. All right. So these are the kind of things that you'll study and put
Yeah.
into an epigenetic clock. So, I mean, it's very likely that somebody, I'm not saying who, but somebody is 40 years old, but epigenetically is 20 years old. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very possible. So, henceforth, I would rather use my epigenetic age when I introduce myself. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Amruta says senescence irregulation. Yes, exactly. Yes, okay. Yeah, Tushar, you can take over.
No, sure. So, I mean, exactly. So, in today's time, I think biological age is more relevant than I mean, chronological age, because like it's more important that how healthy we are. It doesn't really matter if you're 40 or if you're 50. Like she was talking about that even in your 50s, you can be as young as your 10 as someone looking in his 20s, right?
Absolutely.
Because you are biologically fit. You're inside. You are fit from inside at the inside core, inside the cells, right? So that is what we measure in biological clock, in aging clock that we say. And so it currently it is based on epigenetic marks, right? So essentially you have these. So you can just imagine your DNA. It has some methylations on top. So there are these modifications that happens on DNA, right? But with time, that marks change, right? Because of degradation. You can just simply talk about that. So what we do essentially in epigenetic clock or aging clock is we measure that how much is that change, how much those marks have degraded. Is the degradation a lot more or is it a lot less? And so that tells us using some algorithms that okay, so this is your age, this is your biological age, which is going to be sort of different with your chronological age. So what that means is if you are aging healthy, like if you are aging in a good way, I mean you are eating healthy, you are doing exercise and all, so probably your biological age is going to be less than your chronological age, right? And if you are doing the other way around, if your eating habits are wrong, if you are not exercising, if you are living a very unhealthy lifestyle, probably your biological age is going to be more than your chronological age, right? Cool. Okay. I mean, so see, these are some of the things that are still they are under research. These are a lot of different signs that we are seeing on the slide, and so I won't really go in this, but it's really interesting. It's really interesting. There are a lot of different kind of therapies that people are talking about: vitamin D, and fasting, then intensive exercise, and then a lot of different organisms are being researched on to see that what they do, how they do. So there was a question, right? That how the other organisms they prevent aging. So so what really happens is they have certain mechanisms inside them, right? So they are robust in nature. So what you might also would correlate with aging is cancer. So what happens with age is you start having a bit greater probability of getting cancerous cells in your body. So what people have seen something in like sharks, that they have very great anti-cancerous ability. So what really they do is they prevent cancer, and so because of that they age slowly and they live longer. right? So there are different kind of like
But I
things
think,
that
Tushar, one thing that strikes me in this is the central part of this image that says
Mhm.
80% is up to us and how we live our lives, and
Exactly,
only 20% is what we inherit through our genes and,
exactly,
our health, our basic
exactly,
health. But 80% is exercise, food, sleep, managing
exactly,
stress.
exactly,
And only
exactly.
20% is, I can't do anything. This is what I got from my parents. So, guys,
Yep,
this is one more reason less that you can blame your parents for,
yep,
of all the other
absolutely.
reasons that we already cannot, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So that's a
So
good
like,
takeaway. That's a good
yeah,
takeaway.
that's a good takeaway. So it's like 80% is in your hand. Do that.
Yes.
Just don't think about 20%. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
Moving
Yes.
forward. Okay, so I would just so we have previously talked about, like they were talking about, some people were talking about anti-aging, right? So that has already happened. So there are some people around in the globe. So this figure that we are seeing over here, it's a famous experiment that one of the researchers in Harvard Medical School he did. So these are twins, right? The left and the right mouse. But what we see is that the right mouse looks a lot older. It has all these gray hairs. If you see, its eyes look old. It ears look somewhat crumbled, or like, I mean, overall it looks older, isn't it? And the one on the left, it looks perfectly younger. It looks like it can just run away at this very moment, and the right one looks like it's not going to run. It's going to give up, right? But these are twins. So apparently they were born at this very same time. They were born from the same mother. So what is it? So what really has happened is they have given some anti-aging therapies, some aging reversal therapies in this mice, which was not given in this one, right? And so what we see is that this particular mice shows signs of reverse aging, right? And so what was the therapy? Some of them were the ones that we have talked about, something like dietary restriction. So what they show, that if you restrict the diet of the mice in a controlled way and you make it eat healthy, so they age slow. Another thing that they did was some kind of so they also did some scientific experiment. They used some molecular biology stuff, and they used to reprogram the mice, and that we all are going to see in the next slide, right? So it's there, we can see, so these are like sort of old mice. And so what we do is you take them inside a chamber and you put some chemicals in, or some therapies in, right? And then what happens? They become young, and now it's perfectly healthy. Now this mice can run faster than old mice of its own age. So essentially, it has reversed in its aging, or in the context of biological clock that we was talking about. So his chronological age is more, but his biological age is very less, right? And so how has that happened? So I won't really go in detail of this, but so these are some of the, so these are Yamanaka factors. So these are like transcription factors, if you know. So these are some, like you can understand. It's like it's it's sort of magic pill, right? It has some chemicals in it which goes inside the cells, and it reverses the signs of damage. So whatever damage the mice has accumulated with time, so what we are doing is we are reversing that. We are removing that damage in slowly and gradually. And so what that results in is a younger mice, right? And so which is very healthy, which is good looking, which can perform better in every context. So it's not magic. It's not something which is happening as a magic. It's all science. We are working on these things. There are a lot of different peoples around the globe which are working on these therapies, on these different kind of interventions. But what this slide shows you is that that is possible, and that has already been done. So this is a real life example of that, right?
Tushar, we'll take some questions now. We are just short of time.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Arya asks, can this anti-aging therapy work on humans as well?
Yep. So the research is in progress, and
Hmm.
this thing is probably very soon going to be tested in humans as well. But honestly, it's a lot challenging because human systems are much more complex than
Hmm.
these model organisms.
Hmm.
So it would take some time, but definitely you can expect that in few decades. I would rather say that probably within a decade, even you would see some very big big breakthroughs happening, and we'll see some really cool therapies would coming. Yeah.
Okay, another question Ala asked is, when do we stop growing and start aging? Is there any
Yeah.
time?
Yeah. So in humans, if I have to tell you, so what is this is a popular notion in the field that so there's a biological phase. There's a biological phase until where you are sexually active. So like in women's, we have a menopause. In men's, you do not really have that, but there is a phase where you start losing your like activity to reproduce. So this is thought in that manner that after that time, after you have attained that phase in your life, when you actually have, you are no longer you are no longer capable of reproducing.
Correct.
You start to age,
and that makes sense, right? Because
that
now
makes,
you are no longer at a species level very useful,
yep,
right?
yep. But exactly at that point, we can bring in these intervention therapies to slow down your age. That we can do.
Ala asks a very good follow-up question. Does this not raise ethical questions? Then we are going to basically have people living forever, or people with the best resources will want to be immortal almost.
Probably this is a very big debate topic, and we can have another session on this.
Yes, it is about a very ethically.
Yeah, it is. But then people have answered it. So
it's like genetically engineering children also, right? Then you can also say that I want a child whose eyes are like Aishwarya Rai, who will grow up to be as, you can just pick and choose the features.
Yeah. But then honestly, this is ethically right, because honestly, if you talk about ethics, then we should not do any kind of thing that we are doing.
Or any intervention. True.
Any intervention. We should stop industries. Every industry is at the moment, but we can't do it. Right? So with the challenges that we have today, these things are meant to be done. We do not have an option to do it or not. We have to do it at some or the other point of time. Right?
So this also brings us to this whole anti-aging business or industry, right?
Yeah.
This mom tired, and then she puts the screen before she sleeps at night.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not based on any cellular reprogramming. That is probably just a mixture of vitamin D and nutrients or something like that.
Yeah. Essentially, so the whole cosmetic industry is based on shorter results, right? So you apply the product, and within a very short time, you are going to see some results. But over time, that is going to fade away, right? So instead of using those, if you make yourself healthy from inside, so then your skin will grow from inside, and then probably you don't have to use those therapies.
Exactly.
Right? So that is what all we are talking about. That making you young from inside, not just from outside. Right? So I would just conclude for a second that so what we have talked about in the whole presentation is that aging is accumulation of damage inside the biological cells, and it's sort of like it's sort of accumulation of damage and loss of cellular maintenance that we have inside the cell. Right? So I just imagine cells as a very robust system, and this robustness of the system is getting away with time, and that is how I define aging. Right? And so aging is not universal. Again, we have seen that. And we can delay it, we can stop it, or even reverse it. We have seen examples of them as well. And how we can do it? Healthy interventions with some intervention therapy, healthy lifestyles with some intervention therapies that are in progress and would be available to all of us in very short times. We can do this thing in humans as well, right? Cool. I think so. That concludes my talk. And with that, I would also like to acknowledge everyone, the whole TTAS team, and all my friends and mentors.
Thank you, Tushar.
who have put me together to make this presentation possible.